So here we have this is part one of Project HM Strat. So this is an original 1980, I'm going to say 7 or 8 Fender HM Strat. These are the Japanese made ones, even though this particular one has Fender USA on the neck plate. I believe these were assembled in Japan. We have the black and white wiring. The American ones had coloured wiring, red and white and blue and white. Kayla Spider trem, missing some parts here, needs some work. Now the only mystery is this pickup, because this should be a Damasio Super Distortion, and as far as I can tell without them taking it out, they don't look like that. They should have hex poles. This looks like a replacement. So I don't know. I'm going to look this up and see if I can sort it out. But it should be a Damasio Super Distortion. So here's a Super Distortion for sale on Gear for Music. Clearly the same pole pieces. So I'm not sure. The American ones had another Damasio Super 3, I think. But so I'm gonna when I get the strings off, and I'm gonna have a look. I'm gonna take that out and have a look at the back of it and see what it says, because there's a possibility that someone's had the Super Distortion out here, unless I'm just not recognizing an old Super Distortion, because they don't look like that. Anyway, so yep, we've got a little mini toggle switch here that switches in the Super Distortion. These knobs, which were like flipping unicorn poo until recently, I guess, with the reissue where they started making them again. Yeah, it's a very cool 80s guitar. Was one of Fender's many attempts to kind of cash in on the Super Strat market. Yeah, so it's a Strat body. We have obviously the Kayla Spider locking trem. That should be the Super Distortion, 2 single coils. It has a 24 fret neck, but as you can see, the extra frets are really only just hanging over, rather than it being all meat up to that point. But that's a bit like the Ibanez Gem was a bit like that, the original ones. And obviously sort of crazy Strat logo. The headstocks were always color coded with the body, I believe. It's got Goto tuners, and this one is in loved condition, and I'd like to clean it up, really, get it really rocking again. See, that maple board is very dirty, but then again, that's kind of the life of the thing as well. You might not want to mess with that. Kayla, it's kind of interesting that the 2020, or I think they came out this year, reissues of these that have been that Fender put out don't have the Damasio. They have a kind of Ibanez stock pickup, and they have a stock Floyd Rose as well, probably a 1000 series or something like that. But they certainly don't have a Kayla in. Poor old Kayla. Okay, so this is part one. This is kind of how the guitar has been for some time. The strings are dead as a doornail, but everything works. There's all this electronics. All the knobs are fine. Now the knobs are interesting in that, apart from there being a design, this F design being sort of, I think, unique to this model. The pots are also center détente. So when you turn it all the way one way and then begin turning it, you feel you get to a midpoint where it locks in, boof, there, and then you carry on turning it. So there's definitely a sense that this is your zero position, and then there's cut and boost, rather than it being just a simple 0 to 10 type affair. The volume pot obviously doesn't do that. That's just a very standard 0 to 10, and this tone pot does the same thing. So these are both center detented. I think that's the right word. 5-way, and then the mini toggle. This model also had, much to my chagrin, that Andertons didn't seem to know what they were talking about when they reviewed the reissue. Is that they're all going on about how this asymmetric neck plate with some of the meat cut away is possibly a new thing. I can't believe they would have been doing that in the 80s. Yes, they were. Look, this is an 80s guitar. This is an 87 or 88 HM Strat, and you can see that they've cut away some of the standard Strat cutaways, because they've made them slightly bigger. And this neck plate, asymmetric neck plate, moved the bolt down and chamfered some of the wood away to help for our upper fret access. And yes, they were doing that in the 80s. The fact that, you know, Cap, Anderton, and whoever he was reviewing it with, Pete, didn't know that, and kind of assumed that that must be a new thing that Fender's doing because it's too advanced to have been doing in the 80s. It's kind of testament to Fender's problem, really, in that some of the innovations that they have done or introduced more recently are stuff that they've done before. Anyway, so okay, this is part one. Here it is, an original HM Strat in black. I kind of wish it was a more 80s-y funky colour, like the pink or whatever. But still, one day maybe it'll get refinned, perhaps, unless it's not worth doing because of if it affects the value. I don't think these are that super valuable anyway. But it's a lovely thing, a lovely piece of history, Fender history, the 80s, trying to catch on to that shredder market. And they'd had a few failed attempts. There was I think, what was it called? The Performer, was it? Fender Performer? I can't remember now, but there was a couple where it was really kind of wild looking and pointy headstock and all that. And this is more sober, but you know, I think these did okay, and then they just, you know, I think in later years they just sort of started putting the humbuckers and the Floyds, I know that's not a Floyd, but you know what I mean, the locking trems on standard Strats, you know, rather than just thinking that they had to make a specific sort of different model to appeal to people who wanted that kind of advance. Anyway, see you in part 2.